Hello everyone, welcome back to Triple Play Analytics. Today, we're going to be talking about, not a player today, but we're actually going to be talking about this, the Hart Memorial Trophy. So, the Hart Memorial Trophy, or the Hart Trophy, is the NHL MVP award. And currently there's a heated debate about it, and about who wins it, and really what decides who wins the MVP award. For example, currently we have the race between a bunch of playoff players or playoff potential players and their teams, and then the one outlying straggler who is, 17 plus points out of playoff contention, that being Connor McDavid. So, does your team being a playoff team actually matter in the Hart race? Also, do you lead your team in scoring? Does that matter? And do you have any help? Do you have any other, elite or franchise-like players playing on your team to help you out, help you score? And have you been hurt? Does injury play a factor? Maybe you haven't played 70 games. You've only played, 56, 57, 58, or under 60 games. Does that hurt your chances because you haven't had a full season, so your numbers might be a bit skewed? Or does that hurt your chances? You haven't played as many games as other players, but you're playing still at the same level, but you just don't have the sheer numbers because you haven't played as much. So what I decided to do was I took, my favorite potential candidates of the for the MVP and kind of ran the NHL effectiveness test on them and really calculated their effectiveness stat and looked at and saw, well, who actually should win this based off of just solely their effectiveness and their effectiveness throughout the season through the games they've played. Now that won't tell the whole story. The effectiveness stat is, that has some flaws and some drawbacks to it, but it's still a good benchmark to see, how good a player is. So the finalists I chose were Taylor Hall, Nathan MacKinnon, Evgeny Malkin, and Connor McDavid. That being said, realistically and biased in my opinion, I believe Connor McDavid should not be in this conversation at all. The Edmonton Oilers have really flopped this year. They invested so heavily in tanking and drafting. They have, I think, 2 or 3 for number 1 overall draft picks on their team, and yet they're still unable to amass over 80 points. Well, there's no way your star player, who could be like the next face of the NHL, should win the Hart Memorial Trophy. The last player to win the Hart that wasn't in the playoffs was Mario Lemieux in 88, 89, or 89, 90. It just doesn't happen anymore because the league has changed. Better players are playing on better teams, and those teams are winning, and they're helping them win. Connor McDavid has not helped the Edmonton Oilers win this season. He does not deserve it. And I know I am forgetting other players like Anze Kopitar, Sasha Barkov, Blake Wheeler, Brad Marchand. Some people might put him into the picture, even though his play has been kind of dirty. But that being said, I looked at kind of the clear-cut people that could win it: Taylor Hall, McKinnon, Malkin, and McDavid, just to have that comparison. And so I updated the effectiveness stat to look more into team-based play, as well as keeping the individual ice time component there and how they play on an individual basis, with their shots, goals, and assists, those individual stats, but kind of added some team-based stats into it. For example, updated their defense, the defensive effectiveness, and the penalty minute effectiveness, and in the offensive effectiveness, readjusted it so that, it makes more sense. It's more not just, this one player is affecting the stat. No, the team play is also affecting the stat. So just based off of the effectiveness stat, we see Taylor Hall has the highest player effectiveness per game. Then comes McKinnon, then McDavid, then Malkin. But then if you look at what I decide to call it as a complete game played. A complete game played means they have an effectiveness for shot, goal, assist, offensive, defensive, on ice, penalty minute, and thus their whole effectiveness above the NHL league average. So for the number of complete games, Taylor Hall has the most. He has 16 complete games in the games he's played through this season. Malkin is next, then McKinnon, then McDavid. And so now we got to think, how do we put these numbers together? And I decided that winning a complete game is actually very important because that shows the player's overall and it shows how well they can play a 200-foot game, both in the defensive zone and the offensive zone, and when they know how to take a penalty, and when they know how to, whether taking a penalty at all is good or not, and how well they are discipline-wise. And they're also on ice, seeing, okay, if they're on the ice for a minute, maybe are they, effective for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or 15 seconds? That difference matters. And so, in the end, I believe either Taylor Hall or Evgeny Malkin will win the Hart Memorial Trophy, regardless of their playoff position, their scoring rate, how many goals they scored this season, whether they win the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy or the Art Ross Trophy. Regardless of that, I believe either Taylor Hall or Evgeny Malkin will win the Hart Trophy. If you want to see a bit more on the stat, just tweet at me or send an email or comment below on this. But thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more information, more in-depth analysis, go watch the longer version of this. Thanks.